In life, all of us make mistakes, but when it comes to keeping reptiles, we need to get it right. So today, let's go over the top 5 mistakes that you might be making with your reptiles and how to fix them. My name's Adam, this is Diamond, you're watching Wickens Wicked Reptiles, stick around. If Hannah Montana taught us anything, or however that song goes, and when it comes to 3.5-year-old Diamond, you are the father. I'm not talking about those type of mistakes. What I'm talking about is just simple things you could be doing wrong that you can fix super duper easy. So let's start off, keep it real simple. Number 5, handling your snake right as you're thawing out rats to feed your snake. This is something that seems so obvious to most of us. Your snake is going to bite anything that it thinks is food, and if you have an aggressive feeder, something like a king snake, a boa, something like that, they're going to be striking all over the place just from scent being in the room, never mind your hand smelling like a rat. And a lot of the times I get this, well, my snake bit me on feeding day. It's always on feeding day. That's because they probably think that you're food. That is the number one reason why you're gonna get bit by a snake. And a food response bite sucks. When you get bit with a food response bite, they bite onto you and they hold on and they don't let go. And sometimes if it's like a hognose snake or something, they'll start walking their jaws along you. And he's biting my ear again. He's gonna try to, don't bite it. And this is for snakes mostly and not as much as, it does happen with lizards too, but definitely for snakes. Make sure that your snake doesn't smell food when you're handling it. And just briefly, I'm not going to go too in depth in this. They have the Jacobson's organ on the top of their mouth, Jacobson's gland, Jacobson's organ. I put subtitles here because I'm too dumb to remember stuff. They flick their tongue out, the molecules stick to their tongue, goes up to this gland organ, and then they process it as, so they're kind of like tasting for smell. And if there's a rat in the room, a lot of the times I think everything that's moving is food, and we've all seen this crazy video of this lady getting bit by a reticulated python, and there probably wasn't even food in the room. Just some snakes are super food motivated, so I guess we'll expand this. Train your snake to know that you're not food. That's number 5. Number 4 is feeding the wrong food to your reptile, and this is what I mean. There are wrong foods you can feed. For example, a lot of the times, and this is a mild one that would actually do no harm, maybe in the long run, but if you feed a mouse to a ball python, they're eventually going to need to be on rats. So I always recommend starting them on rats. This is mostly for breeders. If you're getting a snake from a breeder, they should be doing this. But don't start them on mice and then expect them to get to rats because the smell is different. And this is, anyway, it's harder to transfer something to what it needs to be on. Just start it off right away. I just kind of thought of this off the top of my head. What I actually wanted to say and what I wrote down was that there are certain vegetables you don't feed a bearded dragon. For example, you wouldn't feed a bunch of kale or a bunch of spinach to a bearded dragon because it has a negative effect on the way they process calcium. So there are certain foods that you should not feed. And onions, for example. There's a whole list of toxic plants that you can't feed to things like bearded dragons and tortoises and things like that because it will either be bad for them in the long run, bad for them in the short term, or kill them because it's toxic. We all know there's toxic plants. This seems very obvious, but the amount of times I hear someone say, I feed my bearded dragon nothing but kale or nothing but spinach because it comes in a spring mix and it's super easy. Now, don't get me wrong. If you feed Diamond, a little bit, spinach, kale, whatever, you're not going to have a dead dragon in the morning. But if you feed nothing but, they're not going to get the nutrients they need from the actual plants like collard green, Swiss chard, endive, thing like that you actually do need. It's going to be a long, slow process. They're not going to process calcium. They might get metabolic bone disease or other things. Again, I'm not a vet or trying to give you vet advice. And one last thing about food, switch up the diet. For most of your animals, this is important. Of course, research each individual one, but as a general rule, except for a few species, switch it up. So if you have a bearded dragon and you only feed crickets, if you have duvia roaches available in your area, switch up with those. Or, for example, link in the description below, Grub Terra. This is black soldier fly larvae. These are amazing. These are absolutely fantastic. These are what I wish that I had before. And finally they reached out to me and they sent me some. Diamond can't get enough of these things for sure. So just super simple. They ship to you really quick, right to your home, link in the description. Anyway, switch up the food as much as you can. Give a varied diet like they would get in the wild. Number 3, again, super obvious. No thermostats. People all the time, I get messages on Instagram, and a lot of them, at least once a day, hey man, do I need a thermostat for my heat mat? Or why is my heat mat heating up too much? Or why is my snake not on the hot spot ever? And then when I ask them to show the setup, there's no thermostat because the Petco or PetSmart employee who started there yesterday as an expert because they're wearing a blue shirt decided to tell you that you don't need one. Wrong. You do need one, buckaroo. You definitely need a thermostat attached to your heat mat or heat tape. Period. There is no question about this. There is no, a rheostat maybe might work, the ones that are connected to the heat pads, but I would recommend there's a link in the description for the one I use. Hit the link. This is exactly what I use for all of these, and also, well, I use a Herpstat for the racks, but they'll work for a rack also. It works for basically anything that's, I think, under 100 watts, so which heat tape is like 6 watts per foot, or 10 watts per foot, depending on how wide it is. We're getting off track here. Use a thermostat. They're not that expensive. This one that I linked below is like $20-something. I have a bunch of them. I have some extra ones in case I ever need one. They're just so cheap, I have them extra in case, in a box, just because, in case I ever need them. This doesn't have to be overly explained. Get a thermostat because your heat mat or heat tape will just start heating up, and sometimes it'll go haywire and it's just going to be dangerous, or it can be even a fire hazard. If you get a good quality thermostat like the one linked below, you can set it where you need it to be, put the probe where you want it so that that temperature is, or that surface is going to be that temperature. Super simple. We can move on. Get a thermostat. Mistake number 2, and this one often falls in the category of laziness: no UVB lighting for your reptile that needs UVB. We all know that things like turtles, tortoises, bearded dragons, things like that, you definitely need a UVB. We could go on. There's lots of reptiles that need it. And there's certain ones like bearded dragons that will die a slow, painful, terrible death if you do not get it to them. In fact, some tortoises, their shells will be so disgustingly warped, and it's just bad. You have to have, for sure, UVB and the right supplementation. We'll put it together because vitamin D, calcium, and UVB all kind of work together. But a lot of the times, I see someone, yeah, my bearded dragon free roamed my house. What? First of all, your house isn't warm enough, but we're getting off track. Second of all, UVB light. Well, they basked in the window. Your window filters out the UVB light. You can't, no, it doesn't work. You have to have UVB light for your reptiles that need UVB light. And a lot of the time, people don't do it because a UVB bulb might cost $30, let's say. $30. There's a link in the description for one as well if you want to buy one. I think it's $30. It's a really great one. They just let it go forever. That's another thing too. How long have you had that UVB light for? Well, since I got them. When was that? 6 years ago? No, UVB runs out. You can get a meter or just change them every 6 months, which is what I do. I have a meter too, but I see like between 6 and 8 months, the UVB is so low, it's not really benefiting the animal anymore. So just get a new UVB light. In fact, if you buy from, say, a great company like Cages, if you buy a custom enclosure from Cages, there's a link in the description, code WWR, you get free door handles. Amazing company. The reason I bring them up is because you can actually buy a UVB light inside the enclosure. So when it comes to you, you literally bracket it in and it's already there, and you switch out the bulb once a year or once every 6 months. These could not be easier. Could not be easier. So if you want to make it easy, Cages below, link in the description. If you have something already, just change your UVB bulb. Your dragon deserves it. Right, Diamond? And of course, supplementation. A lot of people, well, I never give if you don't give supplementation to your animals and do your research, each individual species needs something different. Now, of course, snakes, most of the time, almost always, don't need any supplementation. They get enough from their food, which is rodents mostly. But lizards, for example, bearded dragons, leopard geckos, things like that, you need to give them supplements. And number 1 mistake that you might be making: too many reptiles. Too many reptiles. And this is what I mean. And I've been guilty of this too, getting too many too fast. You can't keep up with the workload. I am on top of as many reptiles as I have. But a lot of the times I see, and I've been guilty of this, where you just kind of go a week without making sure that everything's super clean and like scooping the poop because there's just too many reptiles and it seems daunting, or you just don't have time, which is another thing that I've had happen to me. So you need to cut back a bit. And I get it. I totally understand why you would get reptiles, too many of them, more than you can handle, and how it can sneak up on you. There's this great deal on this Burmese python and I understand, I know, I've been there. But you have to be able to have discipline and not get too many things too quickly because your animals will be neglected and suffer. Now, in my case, I've never had like neglected animals. I'm talking like very minimal. I didn't go in and scoop poop for like 7 days. So they had one poop that was stinky in there, that type of thing. But I've seen it get so bad where it is legitimately neglect and hoarding. And I think the difference between what I do and what most YouTubers do that have a big collection, or anyone, just not YouTubers, but people who have collections of reptiles that do it well, and a hoarder, is if you hoard these animals, you walk into the reptile room and the first thing that hits you is like this wall of smell because it's just stinky and gross and your animals aren't getting water, and you walk in and there's just water dishes that are empty and they haven't been fed in a while and they're dirty. Don't do this. I see this happen so often. And if you want to know how I take care of 75 plus reptiles, video right here about my daily routine, what I do basically every day to keep a collection like this. So this might help you because I know there's some of you probably that are thinking, he's not talking about me, is he? I am talking about you. Just no shame. It happens sometimes. Just gotta fix it right away. And there you go. Those are your top 5 mistakes, reptile mistakes that you might be making and how you can fix them. I hope you enjoyed it. This idea came from a Patreon supporter. Patreon, thank you guys so freaking much. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. You're supporting the channel. And if you can't be a Patreon, no problem. Thank you for watching. Every view makes like this worth it. Every time I see the views go up, I get the message out there, which is the whole point of the channel anyway. And if you want to support the channel in another way, there's merch, and there's links in the descriptions for other stuff and Amazon affiliate links, and I'm just rambling. That's how I do this. I just ramble at the end. Hit subscribe. See you on Monday. Nope. Thursday.